Yeah. So, what do we have here?
Here it is. I'm blocking my face, but
That's okay.
the 60.
60 surf. That thing is like, I want to do the Derek Zoolander. Like, what is this? A wing made for ants? This thing is tiny.
Yeah.
So why the 60, Cole?
Why the 60?
Yeah. What type of person would buy a 60, and for what type of waves? What's that for?
So my opinion on that is changing over time.
Okay.
It used to be you'd ride like a 120. This is just for the lift range. Like you'd ride the 120 till like it gets a little bit overhead, and then it gets kind of tracky and weird because it's super high aspect. Then you'd switch out for the 100 for like head high to maybe like triple-ish overhead when that gets a little tracky, and then you'd switch to this thing.
Yeah.
But now I've started, and a couple other guys, Matt mainly is the main reason why I started surfing.
Matt Coast.
Yeah. Well, I had like fallen when towing and then hand paddled in on a tow board onto the 100 and ridden it and really enjoyed it. But I've just recently started riding it with straps because Matt's been raving about it. And yeah, it's all you need is steepness. You don't need size. So it could totally be waist high at seal, and the 100 is the best wing ever.
Like punchy beach break, you go to a
It doesn't
100
even need
or
to be that
something.
punchy. It just needs to be steep enough to sustain, like you
Need upward
you
lift.
need the water flow to be hitting your wing at a super steep angle. It doesn't even need to be big.
Yeah.
And then it's just the best wing ever. It's like a shortboard. It's crazy.
That's awesome. Why? So you said 120, then the 100. Why not 150, 100, then 60?
I've never ridden the 150.
Oh, we got to get you on.
I feel like it's just a little too big for me. But yeah, most of my friends with the 150 just happen to be goofy foot, and we're always with straps, so we can't switch.
Well, maybe the 150 would be, if somebody's already on a 150, the 100 is the next step in their quiver, instead of maybe going to the 120, which we've always done, unless you want to pump around a lot, right?
Yeah, so it's sort of like I'm reframing. Before it was 120 up to this height, then 100, then 60. And the height at which I was determining, okay, you need to switch over is when you're overpowered, and overpowered in this sense meaning it literally only goes straight and you're out of control.
Right.
But now I'm sort of redefining, and again, this is something Matt came up with, is overpowered is now, instead of being defined as the wing wants to breach because it's going too fast, it's when you're in the most critical moment of foiling. So like, let's say you're doing a super hard banked turn, that's when you're overpowered, when you can no longer hold it down in that position. And that
like
happens way quicker. Yeah. So for example, the 120, let's say, would get overpowered when it's like 3 or 4 foot overhead just going straight. But on a shoulder high wave, if it's really steep and punchy and you do a crazy wingtips out turn and really push on it, sometimes your feet will like buckle underneath the lift.
Okay.
And that to me means it's overpowered, you should use the 100. And this is just now.
Or you got to get stronger legs.
Yeah. So reframing it like that, and now thinking in a context of where, okay, you could ride the 100 and surf that's like waist high, shoulder high, and even in the turns, the 100 sometimes is overpowering me, as in the wing is physically capable of going into a harder turn, and my body's giving out first. So that's like reframing, okay, maybe the 100, it's not up to like double overhead, it's just like waist high to like 3-4 foot overhead is where you could still do really nice turns on it. You're not overpowered, and then you switch out to the 60.
But maybe if you're towing and the wave's not even really breaking, it's just a big rolling lump.
Yeah, it depends on the type of wave.
Yeah. So I heard you describe it before. It was like in miles per hour. It's like the 120 lives in that 15 to 20 miles per hour range. When you get to that 20 miles per hour towing, you need to be on that 100 surf. But like, what is it, like 25 to 30 miles an hour? You're because that
the 100, I feel like I don't have the numbers super like off the top of my head, but definitely I could say somewhere around that like 18, 19, the 120 maxes out. Somewhere around like the 25-ish, the 100 starts to get funky, and
Can't keep up.
Yeah, so overpowered when you're towing becomes more of a, it's not that you're breaching necessarily, it's that the swell itself is moving past you. So
yeah, swell's going to, you can't
you
keep
catch
up.
the wave and it's an endless drop-in. You feel like you're dropping, and if the drop-in's taking 30 seconds and you're still only midway down the face, then there's no chance you're ever going to do any turns because you're just going straight the whole time.
Right.
And then this I've taken up to, and granted this is all measured with the Apple Watch, which I like to say is like reliably unreliable.
Yeah.
Where it's, I'm sure, like totally not the real numbers, but I feel like it's consistently not the real numbers, so it's comparable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the watch says I've taken this up to like 33 miles an hour, and that's was on like a really big day, and it was running down the line, and yeah, I could feel around like the 30th mile an hour zone. I no longer could do any turns. I was just barely holding it down.
On the 60?
Running down the line on the 60, yeah.
So now you're waiting for the 50?
45 maybe.
Okay.
And longer fuse too would be nice. Like the 25 started feeling a little pitchy at a certain point. And longer mast too.
Yeah, you got to have a longer mast, right?
Yeah, there was a 40 at some point, but I don't know what happened to it.
Maybe that's where some of these other mast companies come into play.
Yeah.
Hey, some guys are doing heavier boards to get down the face. They say, oh, it helps get down the face of the wave. I like it because it sounds like it reduces vibrations. But maybe you would tell them, hey, just drop your wing down a size, get rid of some of that surface area, and you'll be able to get down the wave faster anyways.
For sure. That's definitely one approach to it. It depends on the conditions. Ideally, towing it's super clean and glassy, and then when it's like that, I personally like using a super tiny board, like a 3.6 to 4.0 range, but 16 to 20 liters. But that's just because I'm scared of getting run over by the foil.
Oh.
So the really big foils probably mellow out the quick reaction time you need to hold the foil down, especially if there's some chop or things like that. But what happens when you're on the longer masts is like tacoing isn't so much an issue anymore. I find when I taco the board, because most of the time you're not wearing a leash because there's no lineup. It's everyone else is out on skis.
Yeah.
So you fall and then the board's 10 feet away from you, or if you fall backwards, same thing. But if you fall forwards, I've had the foil rush right past me because if it's a heavier board, it'll have so much momentum and you're going so fast that it could keep going. So it's mostly just because I'm scared. Same reason why I don't use foot straps. It's because I'm paranoid of breaching and just really tweaking my ankles.
Yeah, getting your leg ripped off.
I would say most people use more like a board that looks like a prone board. And then, some guys are adding weight to it. It's also, this is less about the foil, but more about just towing. I really like sinking a super small board.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's the fastest way to get up on the rope. But it's kind of tricky with no straps. It's like a very specific technique that a lot of people like doing a wake style start where the board is in front of them more.
Which I feel like
and
is
using
almost
foot
impossible.
straps. I think it's easier at first, but then the turnaround time, if there's like white water coming at you and you have to get up really quick to put your feet in the straps and then turn so that the thing's in front of you. Whereas like if all you have to do is sink the board, you could totally finish the wave, plop back down on the board, and then you're just treading water like this, and the board's underneath you, and you're ready for when the rope tags you on the arm.
I sink the board, but I've been out on like boards are like in the 30s, right? So I've always had trouble with sinking it. So I want to get like a heavier, smaller board.
Sure.
And I've even thought for just sinking practice, maybe do put a strap or like one strap on the front or something just to help you get that motion down. And, practicing like towing on a small day or something like that.
It's also tricky sometimes when like the wave comes by you. If the lower volume boards will tend to separate from your feet, and then it'll slowly float away from you, and then it'll like drift out and then pop up behind you. So I like to, like, if the rope's in one hand, like grab the deck
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
as the wave's coming, you pull it up to your feet and then let go again.
Makes sense. Especially like towing up on like random downwinders or something, which is super choppy and nuts.
Yeah. This is definitely right now a super specialized wing. Like a lot of times I go out and I ask like, oh, what wing were you on? Were you on the 60, the 100? And majority of the time people say like, oh, 100, it's not big enough for the 60. But this thing has tons of glide and I'd say even more front foot pressure than the 100. So I think I'm going to try riding it in smaller stuff and see how it goes, because I don't really know how this thing turns yet, because I normally just use it when it's too big for the 100.
Yeah.
And then we're doing more slow fading arcs. We're not getting wingtips out or anything crazy.
You're ready to loosen up a little bit.
Yeah, and just see how it goes when it's smaller. I mean, if you could prone paddle the 100, who knows, you could maybe paddle this into like a big point break or something like this.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what you do with it, man.
Cool. Thank
Right
you.
on.